This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV24x7.
All right, private investments are not picking up. So why is it that India Inc. is not going ahead and investing in the Indian economy? What are the concerns of India Inc.? We spoke earlier with Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, one of the most credible faces of corporate India and chairperson of Biocon. I began by asking Mrs. Shaw about the mood of corporate India. Mrs. Shaw, right now, what according to you is the mood of corporate India? How would you best describe it?
Well, to describe it in one word, I think India Inc. is getting impatient. And why do I say this? Because I think we welcomed the Modi government very euphorically in May. And I think the reason the expectations were so high is that we simply wanted this government and expected this government to be very decisive. And we expected this government to fast track regulatory and economic reforms. We are now almost 9 months into this government, and whilst a lot of positive signals are there in the business environment, I feel that a lot of low-hanging fruits, which is really about ease of doing business and more importantly speed of doing business, is still not sort of incentivizing investor sentiments. At least that's the way I perceive it. Certainly we are very, very pleased with some of the important bills that are being passed or expected to being passed, such as the insurance bill, the GST bill.
Right.
I think the whole online coal allocation has been welcomed.
Sure. So you're saying right noises, right intent, but you're concerned about the slow pace of action. It's important now for the government to walk the talk. Is that the kind of disappointment you're talking about?
No, I would say it's not disappointment, it's more impatience at this point in time, because I think we expected things to happen much faster. But I think government itself also realizes and recognizes that we are in a bureaucratic mire for decades, which have tangled up our whole system, which now needs to be untangled. And I think that is taking time. And I think many of them have actually voiced concern about, the bureaucratic quagmire that we are in, and that, that there has to be a lot of effort done in first dealing with bureaucratic simplification. So I think the government also realizes it's not that easy to do things as fast as they wanted to, but that is also why India Inc. is also getting a bit impatient, because they wanted things to be done faster. I think we all understand the bureaucracy and the bureaucratic complexity, but how fast can we simplify it is the question.
Okay. A part of the criticism has also come from the fact that perhaps there have been no big bold ideas or big bold reforms that have come through. Many actually saying that this government is only carrying forward what the UPA government had done. Do you share that concern and that view that the reforms or the measures that are being announced or the ideas aren't bold enough?
No, I'm not so concerned about that. You can keep having bold ideas. And many of these ideas are quite bold, but I'm more concerned about action. I don't want them to remain ideas and bold ideas. We need those bold ideas into bold action. That's what is not happening. So that's what I am concerned with. We talk about Make in India. Make in India is a very bold idea, but you need to do a lot to make it happen, I mean, we are looking at cost of capital, which is not very attractive for investing in manufacturing. We are talking about, land and labor reforms that need to be done fast in order to really make in India happen. We are talking about infrastructure needs of Make in India to happen. We are talking about, the talent availability and many other aspects of Make in India. How are we addressing all this to really, realize this particular potential? Because this is a big job creator.
Okay, so if there are things that you want the Prime Minister to do right now, if there's a message that you have for the Prime Minister, maybe perhaps 3 things that will help hasten the process of reforms, will enable quick decision making, will help you change your view of impatience in many ways that you're expressing right now. What are those things?
Well, I think GST is going to be a big deal for India Inc. and I think everyone's watching that. Secondly, I think we do need to get into time-bound approvals. So we do need to get into self-certification and time-bound approvals, which especially for large projects. We cannot spend half the project time in just getting approvals. I think this has to change, and if that can happen, I think it will augur well for inducing investment in large mega projects. We must see large investments in infrastructure projects being activated. I would like to see a very strong policy for PPP models, whether it is in railways, defense, infrastructure that the government is talking about. Where is that PPP model? I know that in the last budget they had actually created an institute to come up with this PPP model, but I've never heard anything beyond that. And this PPP is going to be a very important part of our economic development. So how are we going to basically fast track this particular PPP policy? Because unless that happens, you're not going to see more investment coming into big sectors. And, then of course, I also want to see, how are we going to address cost of capital? Right now, our interest rates are running high. Our rupee is also running away. We need to make sure that there is some reining in of interest rates. I know that interest rates have been reined in, but I think they need to come down because, we waited for inflation to come down. Thanks to oil prices, everything has been reined in and has been contained. Right. But I think we also have to make sure that we take advantage of some of these macroeconomic factors and translate them into, our own economic drivers.
Okay. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, if today we heard the Chief Economic Advisor, he had a very important point to make, and that is that public spending needs to increase simply because private investments haven't picked up. And perhaps the greatest challenge for the government really will be to spur investments, to make sure that that investment cycle is moving. Is that a fair assessment of the state of the Indian economy? Is it fair to say right now that India Inc. is in a wait-and-watch mode?
I think it's a fairly reasonable assessment because people are in a wait and watch mode because, for instance, certain important things that the government should be doing, for instance, giving clarity on, taxation and tax treaties, for instance, Shweta, is not happening. I mean, today I know that a lot of investment from, just because of the lack of clarity or an impasse on decision making in terms of the Indo-Mauritius tax treaty is costing us very dearly. People have been talking about amounts of $19 billion of investment being stuck because of this impasse. Now, you need to be decisive. The government needs to decide. Do they want to honor that tax treaty or do they want to change it? But don't keep industry in limbo and investors in limbo because you can't decide. That is where the concern is. The previous government was accused of being very indecisive. We certainly expect this government to be decisive.
All right, strong words there from Kiran Mazumdar Shaw. Many thanks, ma'am, for joining us and sharing your views. But you've got a top industry leader there saying that India Inc. is getting impatient. They believe the government needs to be more decisive, needs to move more quickly. With that, it's a wrap here from me on Rebooting India. Thanks so much for joining in and for watching. Goodbye.